Alright, hello. Today we are doing an Ironclad tier list, the objectively correct Ironclad tier list. So, let's get started. Anger. Anger's a C tier card. It can be good to get through the early Act 1 damage race. Just good extra damage when you can't play all the cards in your hand anyways, and you just have strikes and defends. It can be good to get those zero costs, but it really falls off late in the game because you don't want to. Sometimes it's zero cost, it's free damage, but even late game, you don't want to play it because you don't want to fill your entire deck with copies of Anger when you could be doing so much more with your card draws. If you're managing to draw like a disgusting amount of cards, which the Ironclad doesn't often do, it can hold up better in the late game, but even then, not that great of a card. Armaments. Armaments is only really good when upgraded, but when upgraded is fantastic. Armaments can be your upgrade plan, you could say. You can take armaments, upgrade it, and then you're not as reliant on campfire smithing anymore. You don't have to smith. You could rest more often because you're relying on armaments to upgrade those cards. Armaments does say upgrade a card in your hand for the rest of the combat and gain 5 block unupgraded. Upgraded, it upgrades all your cards. So if you can get a big hand, if you can draw a little bit, then play armaments, you'll be set. And for that upgrade value, it's quite good. Barricade. 3 energy block is not removed at the start of your next turn. Or at the start of your turn. Not next turn, just your turn. Barricade's alright. It's B tier ish. Um, so what people think is that with Barricade, you're like, oh, I'm blocking for 100, and I'd really like to keep this block because I can block for a lot. And then I'll be able to hold my block for next turns. But if you're blocking for 100, you've already kind of won if you can block for 100 on each turn. Now, if the amount of block you're gaining is inconsistent, yeah, it can be good. If you can only inconsistently get 100 block, fine. But the 3 energy cost, I mean, if you upgrade, it's 2, but that's not something you really want to spend an upgrade on. It's hard to justify playing it sometimes unless you have a ton of energy. Now, if you have some bloodlettings or some seeing reds, maybe. But overall, it's a lot of energy for an effect that feels like a win more effect, right? You're just trying to win more. Now, if you're trying to do stuff with body slam and that, or if you want to get the 999 block achievement, this is kind of necessary, or something like calipers, but oftentimes I find that this is not worth the energy in the current moment. Bash. Bash is a D tier. You're forced with it. You're forced to start with it, starting card. Now, Bash, obviously, it's not a terrible card. There's still situations where you're playing it. It's just, if it were to come up in card rewards, it doesn't. But if it were to, you would never take it, right? You're never taking Bash. I mean, the game knows this, right? If you see other 2 cost cards like Clothesline, Clothesline's straight up more damage. I mean, they know that Bash is a little underpowered for it, right? You can't compare Bash and Carnage. You can't compare Bash and where's another 2 damage card? Sever Soul doesn't really. Sever Soul's bad, kinda, but Bash and where's another 2 damage card? I mean Reaper ish, but they don't really fit the same niche. But compare stuff Bash to things like Clothesline, and I guess where's I saw Heavy Blade somewhere. Heavy Blade's not a great example, but yes, it applies vulnerable, but there it's certainly just not a lot of numerical value for its 2 cost. And for just because you would never take it, it's in D tier. Battle Trance. Battle Trance is solid. Draw 3 cards. You cannot draw additional cards this turn. Cost nothing. You almost always want a Battle Trance unless you're drawing consistently throughout the entire turn with something like a Dark Embrace. You're so fine to just always take one most of the time. You don't really want to take 2 because you don't want to Battle Trance and draw into another Battle Trance. But yeah, it's just a ton of draw value. Super good. Battle trans can go above armaments, actually. Berserk. Zero energy, gain 2 vulnerable at the start of your turn, gain energy. Berserk is an interesting card. It's oftentimes you can't really play it because I mean you have to play it on a turn where the enemy's not attacking. And it doesn't give you any value until your next turn. It doesn't help you this turn. And for it to be completely safe, you need them to also not attack on your next turn. If you upgrade it, it only says gain 1 vulnerable. But oftentimes, the amount of damage that you're going to take from this is not worth the extra energy that you don't get till next turn. If it gave you the energy this turn, it would be doable, but it does not do that. And so for that, the extra damage you might take from the vulnerable often isn't worth the energy. If you're blocking for a lot, you can make it work, but most of the time it doesn't work that well. Blood for Blood. 4 cost card. Costs 1 less for each time you lose HP, deal 18 damage. Blood for Blood is a solid card, man. Very solid. I think it's better the higher ascension you are, because at higher ascensions, enemies tend to just deal more damage. Sometimes a little more than you can block for. And for that, you'll take that residual chip damage. Ironclad also has quite a few cards that damage himself. So this procs off of that too. Hold on, I just had to drink some water. But Blood for Blood can very fast start to get down to that 1-0 cost. And 18 damage for 1-0 cost is a lot. Now, early, it might not be a great pick because it might not be taking damage. It's like a late Act 1, early Act 2 take, because when your deck's kind of rounded up, if you don't have bloodlettings or some other way to damage yourself, then Blood for Blood is late Act 3. Your deck's rounded up. You might not be taking a lot of damage because you might be blocking. But then Blood for Blood is also bad early, like really early, because you might not, the fights might not be lasting long enough, right? And you also might not be taking enough instances of damage to really reduce it down to that 0-1 cost you want it to be. Overall, solid card. Try it out once you get to those higher ascensions. At lower ascensions, it might not be as good, but try it out. Bloodletting. Incredible. Incredible card. Lose 3 HP, gain energy. I believe, actually, this is... I think this might be an older tier list now that I'm thinking at it, because I believe Bloodletting does say gain 2 energy. I'm actually going to double check here, because I'm pretty sure... I'm confident it says 2 energy. I just want to make sure. Yeah. It does say gain 2. I thought it was, okay. Gain 2 energy, upgraded, gain 3 energy. Right? Very good. Often you can actually save HP by playing Bloodletting, because having more energy to either play more block cards or kill the enemy attacking you will save you more HP than the HP you lost from the Bloodletting. So don't sleep on Bloodletting. The lose 3 HP is not that big of a detriment. You have Burning Blood as Ironclad. You're healing. You can take this early too because you'll heal off of it. Fantastic card. Bludgeon. Obviously, when Bludgeon is good, it's good, but you just can't take it often enough. Obviously, Snecko Eye, love it, right? 3 cost, go to town. But it's oftentimes, I would even be fine. If I see this early Act 1, I'll take it, because it's just a lot of damage. Also, because early Act 1, I'm just praying for a Snecko Eye after that, but... yeah, Bludgeon is a card that doesn't slot in super well to a lot of decks. It kind of just does its own thing. When it's good, it's good. Like I said before with Snecko Eye, but it's not often that super good that you want it to be. because it's 3 energy, clunky. You can't really play it alongside a ton of other cards for that C tier. Body Slam, deal damage equal to your block. It's fine. It's defensive. I think of Body Slam as more of a defensive pick than an offensive pick because when you take Body Slam, you're committing to blocking a ton and then saying, I want to deal damage after that, after I block. So when Body Slam is in hand, you can just think, okay, all the block I gain is also damage dealt. Now, it does cost 1 energy. Upgrading it makes it cost 0, which in my opinion makes it much better. The one problem with Body Slam is that you have to draw it with your block cards, right? You're not you could draw Body Slam and then a bunch of attacks, and then Body Slam's useless. And Body Slam is much better with something like Barricade or with Calipers maybe. But yeah, if you can block for a lot, it's great. Yeah, I would say if you're presented with Barricade and Body Slam and you're able to consistently block for a lot, I would take the Body Slam over the Barricade because the quick damage is going to help you more than just becoming invulnerable and then slow. And it's Body Slam, trust, even though, well, I guess if you're consistently blocking for a lot, you should probably take the Barricade. But on a turn where you've already got the block. But then again, you just can't play Barricade because it takes 3 costs. So I don't know. Barricade and Body Slam obviously fit into the same archetype. Let's move on. Brutality. Brutality is incredible. Brutality is amazing. At the start of your turn, lose 1 HP and draw 1 card. I'm not actually going to put this in S tier. No, it's A tier. It's not S tier yet. Not quite yet. Yeah. At the start of your turn, lose 1 HP and draw 1 card. Brutality is fantastic value. It synergizes with Blood for Blood and other cards that want you to lose HP. Bloodletting, some other cards we'll see later. And the extra draw is just fantastic. It's nice. Makes your hand size bigger. And most of the time, that extra card will allow you to have more options and play better, which will save you the health that this thing is losing you. Save you more health, probably. Burning Pact. Burning Pact is excellent. Exhaust 1 card, draw 2. Really wants that upgrade, which will make it draw 3. Fantastic in Exhaust decks or anything that gives you synergy with Exhaust. Exhaust is very good in the Ironclad. There's a lot of decks that want to be exhausting things. You can exhaust curse cards or status cards that you don't like. Just a solid Ironclad draw card. Carnage. Don't sleep on Carnage, I would say, to most people. Some people see that ethereal and they think, well, then I'm going to have to play the Carnage. And even if, the key thing with Carnage is that when you take it, right? When you take Carnage, well, Carnage can be at the bottom of B tier. When you take Carnage, people think, oh, I have to always play it or I'm going to lose it. You can take Carnage, and then the next fight, or in important fights, you can choose to not play it. It's not always the best to play Carnage. Sometimes you want to lose your Carnage, and that's fine. The fact that Carnage is ethereal, obviously, it's not a huge... It's a downside, but it's not as big of a downside as you might think, and it's even an upside in some fights where you don't want this 2-cost big damage card. And especially in Act 1, it's mainly an Act 1 take. Act 1, it'll just help you with your damage, help you get through those fights. Because in Act 1, you really just want damage because all the elites of Act 1 are damage races where if you try to stall, they will kill you. Right? If you try to stall the sentries, they'll fill your deck with days and you die. If you try to stall against Gremlin Knob and play skills to defend, he'll gain strength and kill you. If you try to stall against Lagavulin, he'll take all your strength and dexterity away and kill you. So you really need to be doing damage to all these elites in Act 1, and Carnage is great for that. Clash. Now, I'm sure you saw beforehand the Clash tier. I was watching a streamer, his name was Frost Prime, and he was talking about how bad Clash was. And I thought, it can't be that bad. He said it was worse than a strike or a defend, and I was like, no way. And I tried it. And to be honest, the streamer's good. The streamer's fine. Not my favorite streamer. Right? He's all right. Some of his takes are good. Some of his takes I disagree with, but this might be the most correct thing I've ever heard from any Slay the Spire player or streamer ever. Clash is complete dog shit. It's terrible. It's awful. I tried it. I was like, it can't be that bad. It's that bad. It's worse. Clash is the only card in the entire game out of every character that I would rather have a strike or a defend over in my deck. Because so many times you have skills or powers in your hand, and it would be so much nicer to not play. But Clash restricts the play of your entire hand. Clash restricts the play of your entire hand, forces you to play all your skills, and then play Clash for what, a measly 14. The restriction this puts on the play in your hand is not worth the measly amount of damage. I encourage a new player to actually pick this up just to see how bad it is. Just try it. If you have a doomed run, like, pick it up. Obviously, if you have a good run, don't ruin it by taking Clash. But if you have a doomed run, just don't quit. If you see Clash, try it out. I don't advise for quitting doomed runs in general, but if you see Clash, try Clash, pick it up, and just see how it makes your run even worse. Fucking garbage. Cleave. Cleave is solid AoE. Solid for those Act 2 elites, two of them, the Slavers and the Gremlin gang or Gremlin leader. AoE fights. There's a lot of other AoE fights in Act 1. Good for sentries, good for slime boss. A basic solid AoE option. Not much else to say. Clothesline. Clothesline is alright. It deals 12 damage, apply 2 weak. It's slightly better than Bash, the more defensive version, but I don't really like Clothesline that much. Doesn't feel like it's enough value. And I already feel like Bash is enough value. This is more value, and it's just meh. Sure, it's trying to be defensive, but also just being an attack that applies weak. You'd much rather have something like... I'd rather have Intimidate over this, and I don't like Intimidate. Or is it 0, apply 1 week to all enemies? Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. Intimidate is pretty bad, but Clothesline is also pretty bad, so it'll stick right there. Combust. At the end of your turn, lose 1 HP and deal 5 damage to all enemies. Combust is pretty bad. Pretty bad. Combust is actually in D tier, yep. Because Combust is worse than Bash, actually. Yeah, I don't like Combust. Combust is, unlike Anger here, right? Anger, the reason Combust is worse than Anger, or something like Bash, is because those cards have uses situationally. Anger, right, it's good for the early Act 1. Combust doesn't scale with anything. Like, the only redeeming quality it has is that it's AoE damage. It doesn't work with anything else. It's not applying... It's not... You're not able to combo it because it's an independent thing that happens separately from everything else, right? The lose 1 HP, the deal 5 damage is not that much value. Think about it. If you have one enemy, this is way worse. This is worse than a strike. Because the 1 HP and the 5 damage, it's not worth it over time. If there's 2 enemies, it's slightly better. But there's so many more things you could be doing with your 1 energy than losing HP for 5 damage. There's 2 enemies, 10 damage. Great. Not worth it. Doesn't work with anything else. Doesn't slot into any decks. Combust is not worth it. Now, on the other hand, Corruption is the best card on the Ironclad. It is sometimes I get a little too excited when I see Corruption, and I take it when I shouldn't. As in, you can't always take Corruption, but you can pretty often take Corruption and make it work. Pretty often. I've actually fallen into the trap a couple of times, and I've seen some of my friends do this too, where they will have some good Corruption runs and then take Corruption when they shouldn't because it's that good. And they still do kind of decent with it, but they really should have taken that Corruption, and it does end up hurting them in the long run. But, man, Skills cost 0 whenever you play a skill exhausted. Incredible. There are so many exhaust energies. Obviously, corruption plus something like corruption plus dead branch. Not going to talk about it too much. Almost wins the game by itself. It's incredible, right? Corruption and cards like Feel No Pain, Dark Embrace. I mean, it's so strong. Corruption, even though it's a 3 cost, because all the skills in your hand will then cost 0, it almost immediately pays itself back that turn. Incredible card. Try it out. Dark Embrace alongside Corruption. Put that up in S tier. Whenever a card is exhausted, draw 1 card. Fantastic. You don't even need Corruption to fully make this work. Ironclad has a lot of cards that exhaust themselves. Now, we just happen to have not seen many in this tier list, but stuff like Burning Pack can draw more cards. Obviously, with the 2 cost, it's a little bit meh. But if you can make it cost 1 to upgrade it, that can make it better. But there's so many cards in the Ironclad that exhaust, and so many cards that exhaust other cards that even without Corruption, it can still be fantastic. Fantastic. The draw power on this, you'll draw so many cards from this, even without a Corruption. But with a Corruption, it's still it's crazy. I don't even know why there's defense in this tier list. That is, yeah. I'll put the strike over here too. Okay. Demon Form. Demon Form it's a fun card. It's not a great card, but it can go at the bottom of B tier. It's obviously when Demon Form is good, it's good. It's a little bit of a bludgeon situation, even though it's not a similar card. But 3 cost at the start of your turn, gain 2 strength. Basically, as the fight goes on, if you let it go on for long enough, unless your enemy is scaling faster than you, you will scale faster. You'll probably win the fight if the fight keeps going. Upgrade. It really wants an upgrade at the start of your turn. Gain 3 strength if upgraded. Makes it scale much faster. Problem is, it costs 3. And Demon Form, to be really effective, you need to find a way to justify or do something else to that cost, because it's a bit of a barricade situation where, actually, you know what? Looking at this, Demon Form is better than... Oh, is it better than Barricade? I don't know. No, it's not. I'm actually, yeah, Demon Form's staying where it is because you can't take it that often. But Demon Form, there's a lot of cards that work well with Strength, and it is kind of like the ultimate Strength card. But that 3 cost really means you're not doing much else this turn unless you can find a way to lower that cost or to get something, or to get a bunch of other cards that you can play. This card really, you might just draw it on a turn where you need to defend, and then you can't play your Demon Form. And if your Demon Form is the main way you're gonna win the game, you kind of need to play your Demon Form, but you also need to not take a copious amounts of damage. So, yeah. It's okay. Disarm. Enemy loses 2 strength, exhaust. Disarm is... It's alright. It's mid. Oftentimes, I find that blocking is just better, right? Unless the enemy's doing multi-attacks, fine. If the enemy's doing multi-attacks, it blocks for maybe a little more if they're doing by 3. But unless the enemy is doing a triple, attacking you like 7 times 3, like the plant does, or attacking you for 3 instances of damage, disarm is really just not... It's not doing more than a basic defend, which is really unfortunate. And for that, it's actually going to get put down a little more lower than that. It still can be useful for multi-attacking enemies, and it does apply over turns, which, yeah, it does apply over turns, which is useful, but overall, I'd rather just block. Double tap. This turn, your next attack is played twice. Double tap is an okay card. Problem, you need to draw it with your big attack, and you just might not. And if you draw double tap and a strike and more strikes, you could have just played multiple strikes, right? Double tap requires you to draw on the turn. If you upgrade it, it says your next two attacks are played twice. Much better because it actually starts to duplicate more cards than the number of cards that you played for that effect, which was one, obviously. If you upgrade it, yeah. I don't think I did a good job explaining that, but basically, if you upgrade it, it's duplicating two cards for the price of playing one instead of duplicating one card for the price of paying one, which is much better. But double tap overall, because it requires you to draw on the same turn, nah. But if you can get it off with another big attack, solid. Drop kick. Deal 5 damage if the enemy has vulnerable, gain energy, and draw a card. Drop kick is dependent on the enemy having vulnerable. I almost sneezed there. And if they don't have vulnerable, it's just really bad. But if they do, I mean, it's free damage. It's a little bit of free damage. So if you are consistently applying a ton of vulnerable, yeah, dropkick. I mean, there's some cool infinites with you can do a dropkick infinite. There's an infinite with it, but besides that, I mean, in general, it's just all right. I mean, if you are applying a ton of vulnerable, great. If not, don't touch it. End of story. Dual wield. Choose an attacker power card, add a copy of that card into your hand. Oh, dual wield. Oh, dual wield. Unfortunately, I'm going to put this in the D tier. Dual wield's only really good if you're adding copies of zero cost cards. Because if you have 3 strikes in your hand and you dual wield onto a strike, add a copy of a strike, you really didn't do anything except play one less strike, right? You need cards that don't cost anything for dual wield to be effective, because then you're actually, because you still have to play the copied cards at cost, right? It's not like you're adding a copy that costs 0. If it was that, that'd be busted, but it does not do that. So you can't just go ahead and copy your bludgeon and then play 2 bludgeons. No, you still have to pay for those bludgeons. Right. Entrench. 2 energy, double your block. Entrench is alright. It really you need to have a lot of block for that to really be valuable. Obviously, if you have something like Barricade and you're retaining all your block, Entrench suddenly can make you basically unkillable. Fun card, just not takeable that often, which is generally how we're ranking these cards, by how often you can take them, how often they are good. And Entrench is not worth the energy most of the time, because you're not, if you draw Entrench with no other block cards, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to block for you. You need to draw other block cards, and because you need to draw on the turn with other block cards, again, cards that rely on you drawing it with other cards, generally, meh. Evolve. Whenever you draw a status card, draw 1 card. Evolve is a very solid card. I'll put that right here. It can be helpful in a lot of boss fights, especially in Act 1. If you get it before Hexagos or Slime Boss, can completely offset some of their big gimmicks. Not really with Hexagos, but with Slime Boss it mostly does, as you can see with Slime Boss on the art there. It also works with a lot of other Ironclad cards that can add wounds. Things like Wild Strike and, where is it? Power Through here. But overall, very solid card, can completely offset some fights. And yeah, very, very good. Exhume. Put a card from your exhaust pile into your hand. Exhume's a very average card. Very, very average card. I'm actually not sure where I want to put this thing here. Exhume can go right here, because Exhume requires you there to be good cards in your exhaust pile. And if you upgrade it, it costs 0, which, Okay, it is one I don't. There's not other This is the most reliable way in the game. I'm not gonna say it's the only way. I'm pretty sure there's something else. It's just not coming to my head. But to get cards back from the exhaust pile, and if you're exhausting a lot of cards, stuff like corruption, your exhume can get something back and help you play a good card twice. In that situation where you're exhausting a lot of good cards, it's good. Otherwise, you might just draw it in your opening hand and go, great, I don't have a lot of exhaust cards in my exhaust pile. And so if you're exhausting cards, it's very good. If you're not, it's bad. And it goes right in the middle because of that. Feed. Feed's a good card. Feed is a very solid card. Deal 10 damage if fatal. Upgrade. Raise your max HP by 3. Feed is... If you get feed early, you can really increase your max HP. If you upgrade it and raises your max HP by 4 and deals 12, very, very solid. The value on this thing, because it's also like a little bit of healing, so... Right, you can think about it as healing 4 HP too, because that max HP comes healed. So the amount of total sustain this provides over the course of a whole run can be pretty huge, and it's decent damage for 1 energy. So for that, it could go at the bottom of A tier. Feel No Pain. We'll put that up in S tier, because oh my god, Feel No Pain is crazy. Any enemy that's putting Dazed in your deck will regret doing so for the rest of their life, or at least their very short life before you kill them. And if you have a Corruption, this is so very good. Feel No Pain is so good that it almost justifies Barricade. I mean, you're going to gain so much block. It doesn't really, but it's... Yeah. Feel No Pain is crazy. Crazy good. Do not sleep on this card. The Ironclad has a ton of exhaust energies. Even if you don't have Corruption, like I said with Dark Embrace, it's even better than... Feel No Pain is better than Dark Embrace. Arguably better than Corruption, but I'm not quite willing to go there yet. But you could make a case for this, for this, and I wouldn't be upset. But yeah, Feel No Pain. There's so many ways to exhaust cards outside of Corruption too. You will love a Feel No Pain if you build your deck right around it, I promise. Fiend Fire. Exhaust all cards in your hand, deals 7 damage for each exhausted card. Fiend Fire is quite good. It is a great way to just finish off targets. If something's like kind of like middling to low HP, you can just, often play a Fiend Fire. If you're drawing a ton of cards, you can get a big hand, finish something off. And the exhaust your entire hand, if you have exhaust energies like Feel No Pain or Dark Embrace, even better. But it's just a lot of damage, and if you can get any strength buffs, this is so much better as well. Just a very high damage card that synergizes with the best cards in the game, which are the exhaust cards. Not the best cards in the game, but the best Ironclad cards. Fire Breathing. Whenever you draw a status or curse card, deals 6 damage to all enemies. 10 if you upgrade it. Situational. Unlike Evolve is a mitigating status cards. Fire Breathing is trying to capitalize on them. But Evolve does it better. Evolve relies on you to play the rest of your deck. Evolve is trying to get you to play the rest of your cards well in spite of the status cards. Fire Breathing is getting you to play. It wants you to draw a bunch of status cards so you can deal damage. Fire Breathing can do... Well, actually, it doesn't deserve... Fire Breathing deserves better than that. It can go B tier. Yeah, Fire Breathing deserves better. Fire Breathing is... You can make a deck around something like Power Through. Where is it? It's over here now. Power Through, adding wounds to your hand and blocking, and getting a lot of status cards. You can pick up curses, and Fire Breathing can do work, and just have the rest of your deck be defensive. I have done that once or twice, a couple times, and it's solid. But overall, there's often better win conditions. Flame Barrier. Gain 12 block whenever you attack this turn, deal 4 damage back. I like it mainly because it just kills the birds. That's really the only reason. Flame Barrier, it's a solid block card early. Take it early, it'll help you mitigate a lot of damage. Later, kind of falls off. I'll be honest. Falls off rather quick. And Act 3, it just kind of sits there. Although I do think it's quite useful. Act 1, first half of Act 2. So for that, I do appreciate it very much. Flex. Flex is alright. I mean, important thing to note, if you have artifacts, it can you can negate the strength down debuff because the lose strength is actually a debuff, but it really wants the upgrade to, instead of gain 2 strength and lose 2 strength, gain 4 and lose 4. It really wants that upgrade to be worth your card draw. Because most of the time you're relying on drawing it with your strength. This is actually going down a bit. Yeah. You're relying on drawing it with your strength gaining cards. And you just can't rely on drawing that way. If you can have something like Limit Break where you can double the strength, right? Or an artifact, like I said earlier, it can be better, but overall there's just better ways to. It's not efficient. Ghostly Armor. Ethereal, gain 10 block. I love a good Ghostly Armor. Early on, solid. Ghostly Armor, yeah, it's just efficient blocking for 1 energy. Being ethereal doesn't really hurt it that much. Sometimes it can be beneficial, like kind of like Carnage. But I actually think, yeah, I think it's better than Carnage. The it can help you block for the necessary amounts early in Act 1. I'll take it early Act 2 if I need the block, but besides that, I'm not really taking it. I'm not picking it up in Act 3 really. But solid card. Just good block for 1 energy. Havoc. Play the top card of your draw pile and exhaust it. This card is a D tier card. Bad thing about Havoc is that you cannot control it. If you have something like Frozen Eye, it can be better. But that's about the only really good synergy. If there's like 1 to 2 cards in your draw pile, you can kind of control it. But it could just play a card that you don't want it to play, right? If you upgrade its 0 cost, it's fine. The most ideal situation is that it plays like a demon form off the top, which you don't mind exhausting because it was already a power. It already kind of it doesn't really exhaust, but it goes away, right? And Havoc, you could just play any random card. It's just, I would rather draw a card and know what I'm playing than just go play a random card off the top of my draw pile, and that randomness just really hurts it. Headbutt. Headbutt is a very solid card manipulation. I'm actually going to put Headbutt at the bottom of A tier. Guaranteeing a card next turn to be at the top of your deck is very good. It's good early game, it's good mid game, it's good late game, and it stays consistent. It's not a groundbreaking, earth-shattering effect by any means, but it's consistently good throughout the whole game. Ironclad doesn't get a lot of card manipulation, but Headbutt is one of the better card manipulation cards in the game, so it will go there. Heavy Blade. Deal 14 damage. Strength affects this card 3 times. Oof, Heavy Blade. I wish you were better, but you're not. If you upgrade its strength, it affects it 5 times. If you're gaining a ton of strength, great, take it. But oftentimes you will not be gaining enough strength to affect this card to make it worth it. It's a clunky 2-cost card. Obviously, I mean, with like Snecko Eye, it's much better. It could be set with any 2-cost or higher card, but it's generally just not worth. It's not enough numerical value for the 2 energy unless you're gaining absurd amounts of strength with like 6, 7, 8 or more, which is it's very doable. But Hemokinesis. Do not sleep on hemokinesis. It is a lot of damage for one energy. Oops, I almost... There we go. Hemokinesis. Where did I put it? Yep, don't sleep on hemokinesis. It is a very solid, damaging card. Hemokinesis says lose 3 HP, deal 14 damage. Which is overall a lot of damage for one energy. And the lose 3 HP often, like I said with Bloodletting, you will offset the HP loss by possibly being able to kill the enemy and take less damage, right, than if you were to take their attack. So for that, Hemokinesis, very good. Can go in B tier. Immolate. Immolate is fantastic. Fantastic damage. Deal 21 damage to all enemies. Add a burn into your discard. I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit here. Okay. The damage is so good that the burn often isn't going to matter because you will kill the enemy before that burn comes back. And even if it does, the trade-off is certainly worth it. It's just a ton of damage. Also, the beta art's really funny, so you should definitely get the beta art and then pick it up just for that. Impervious. Gain 30 block. Exhaust. Certainly a very good card. It's just a lot of block for 2 energy. It's just numerically strong. There's not much else to say, really. Very numerically good. Infernal Blade. Add a random attack into your hand. It costs 0 this turn. Infernal Blade's okay. I don't take it. I would say I actually take Infernal Blade less than Anger. I'm putting it in D tier. And I'm not saying it can't be good. I'm saying it's just randomly good, right? Infernal Blade, yes, I got a bludgeon off the top, or I got a reckless charge. I got a drop kick. And the enemy doesn't have vulnerable. Like, or I got an anger. Sucks. There's a reason to take anger early in Act 1 for that extra damage. Infernal Blade, it's like, oh, do I feel like rolling the lottery every time? I guess. If you upgrade it, it costs 0, significantly better. Does that justify taking it? No. Because the randomness sucks. It really, really does suck. Inflame. Gain 2 strength. It's okay. It's permanent strength. It's a very solid way to gain strength, but it's just not as... If you upgrade, it says 3. The upgrade is actually really... It's really good for the upgrade because Strength deck wants a lot of strength. It wants to do multi-attacks. It wants heavy blades. It wants to gain more strength. So this really does want the upgrade. It's just the best flat gain strength card. Unless I'm forgetting one. Yep. The best flat gain strength card, but even then it's not great. I mean, Demon Form is a better... It's not really... Demon Form isn't flat strength, though. It's scaling strength. And Inflame gives you strength now, which is better, but Demon Form is so much more strength. And Demon Form is so much more scaling. Inflame is alright. It's just doesn't do anything. It just feels kind of bad to play Inflame when the enemy is attacking you and you need to block. Sometimes you just can't play it and you really need to. That's unfortunate. Intimidate. Intimidate is apply 1 week to all enemies. Can go right here, barely above Clothesline, because it often just doesn't justify your card draw. It's not that much effect. What if you just draw this when they're not attacking? A waste of a card draw. Actually, you know, Clothesline is better because at least if you have energy left over and you can play it, then it still does something. It still does 12 damage. Intimidate, if you draw it and they're not attacking, does nothing. And I'm actually going to put it way lower. I was previously just looking at it and going, it's better than Clothesline, plot it right here. But now that I've decided Clothesline's better than it, it's falling. It's falling so many spots. I actually think it's D tier. Yeah. Because there's a reason to take Anger. I don't really see many reasons to take Intimidate. Reason to take some of these cards, but Iron Wave, gain 5 block, deal 5 damage. It's a fine early take. It's not really doing anything late game though. Late game it falls off hard. Early game it's just decent value. Not doing much. Just sitting there. Existing. And if it wants to do that, by all means it can. By all means it can exist. Juggernaut, whenever you gain block, deal 5 damage to a random enemy. Juggernaut, you are not gaining block frequently enough. Like small instances of block. You're not gaining enough small instances of block to justify Juggernaut most of the time. The only situation where I think Juggernaut is justifiable is situations where, like, a Feel No Pain. If you have Feel No Pain, it's crazy because that's so many little amounts of block. Juggernaut can and Feel No Pain. Although even though Feel No Pain, you don't really need Juggernaut, it still feels like a little bit of a win more card. Because if you have Feel No Pain and you're getting that much block, you've probably won anyways. But Juggernaut can do a little bit of damage. Although it's usually just not enough, because when you gain block, when you gain a ton of block with like those massive block decks like they do, it's with stuff like Impervious, and that's only 5 damage. It's not so many instances of block, just one big instance. So for that, Juggernaut is low. I'm actually going to move it below. It's still staying in C tier, but it can be at the bottom of C tier, because I feel like I have Anger more often than I do Juggernaut. Well, obviously I do, because Anger's a common card, but you get what I mean. You're smart. You got it. Limit Break. Limit Break says double your strength. Unfortunately, it does nothing if you have no strength, which is why so often I cannot take it. Limit Break is good with a demon form, good with anything that gets you a lot of strength, good with flex even, good with a strength potion, or like a flex potion, not a strength. But situational, because you might not have strength. And if you're not gaining a lot of strength, it doesn't really help you. Alright. Metallicize. At the start of your turn, gain 3 block. This is a terrible card. It is not enough block to justify it. Yeah, I can go there. It's not a random. It's not a do random something card, so I can go there. But I'd rather just block now with a defend than gain 3 and then it. The block for 3 now, like when you need block and you want to play block cards, you need the block now because they're attacking you now. Right? You don't want to be gaining block like a little bit each turn. It's not worth the energy. If you upgrade it, it's only to 4. Numerically, not enough output. Offering, great. Love it. Lose 6 HP, gain 2 energy, draw 3 cards. We love to see it. It's like Bloodletting. It's like a Bloodletting's big brother. Like I said, same logic with Bloodletting. I'm going to put them right next to each other. Bloodletting's a little higher because you see it more often. But hey, man, these two work in tandem. They're great. Fantastic. Actually, I will give a reason for why Offering's lower. Offering exhausts, and Bloodletting is a kind of a card you want to stick around with. Perfected Strike. I'm so sorry, Perfected Strike, but you gotta go in D tier. For being such a noob trap, I'm so sorry. Perfected Strike's gotta go. It's gotta go lower than most of these cards. I'm putting Perfected Strike at the bottom of D tier. It's not even the fact that it's like that much worse than like these other cards. In fact, you could make a case for it to be better, but it's such a trap because card removals are so important in this game. And to suddenly not want to remove your strikes because you have Perfected Strikes, the trade off is not worth it. I promise, whatever damage Perfected Strike is doing is not worth the inconsistency or the possibility of drawing a hand of all strikes and defense. And if you take Perfected Strike with the logic of, I can just remove my defense instead, great, you're going to have no block. I can just take other block cards. What if you don't see other block cards? If you've already seen other block cards, it still doesn't justify having a ton of strikes in your deck for this thing. There's better ways to do damage, I promise. Next. I mean, it does scale with other strike cards, but there's not even that many other strike cards in the game. What, you have Wild Strike, Twin Strike, Pommel Strike? Is there even anything else? I'm looking here. It's not worth it. All right. Pommel Strike. Deal 9 damage, draw 1 card. It's an okay card to take early. Generally, I only advise picking it up if you see it upgraded, where it says deal 10 damage, draw 2 cards. That's much better. Because it's excellent card draw. So it can go here. The draw cards, if it's upgraded, it's up here. If it couldn't be upgraded or its upgrade didn't increase the draw, it would probably be somewhere down here. But the fact that it's just excellent card draw when upgraded puts it up here. Power Through. Add 2 wounds into your hand, gain 15 block. It's a great card. It's a very solid frickin' card. The wounds go into the best place they possibly could. They go into your hand, meaning if you have any other exhaust cards, you can immediately get rid of them. They shuffle into your discard and then back into your deck. So if you draw more cards and shuffle your discard into your draw pile this turn, they won't show up in your draw pile until you reshuffle your discard. And 15 block for 1 energy is crazy value. The 2 wounds can be offset with something like Evolve or Fire Breathing. And oftentimes, you will have won the fight with all the block that you'll be able to block and then end up winning the fight because you were able to deal enough damage with your other energy because were able to block so efficiently with this 1 energy. Pummel, deal 4 damage 2 times, or 2 damage 4 times, sorry. 4 damage 4 times would be crazy. What am I saying? Yep. It's a alright card. Really wants strength, obviously. It exhausts itself, which it can synergize with some of the exhaust cards. But it really wants strength to obviously be good. And if you have strength, it can be very good. Rage. Whenever you play an attack this turn, gain 3 black or 5 upgraded. Problem with Rage is that you have to draw it with your attacks. And if you don't draw it with your attacks, not gonna do a whole lot, is it? It's just gonna sit there and do nothing. Rage gets to go right there in the middle of C tier. Or not, bottom-ish of C tier. But yeah, it's not that much block for a card that sometimes does nothing. Rampage. You can make some funny decks with Rampage, although it's not that great. Deal 8 damage, increase this card's damage by 5 this combat. If you upgrade it, that increases by 8 every time you play it. There's some funny things you can do with Rampage, and then like a headbutt, and drawing again, and then playing the Rampage over and over again. I've gotten Rampages up to like 70 before. I have done that, but it's not great. It's a gimmick and it's funny. It can be a good early take in Act 1 to do damage, but otherwise I would never take this outside of Act 1, really. Reaper. Another card that works great with Strength. Deal 4 damage to all enemies, heal HP equal to unblocked damage. People look at this and say it's only good if there's multiple enemies. No, you have to think about it like you want to gain a ton of strength, and you can stall out a fight and gain strength, hopefully. If you're using like a demon form and you're kind of low, but you can block against an enemy, you can just stall and then gain strength, and then Reaper with a ton of strength and heal back up to basically full. And that niche gets Reaper into B tier. Because if you don't have strength, it's really lackluster damage for the 2 energy that it is. So Reaper can sit in B tier for its gross gimmick potential, but it's still a gimmick. Reckless Charge. Deal 7 damage, shuffle a Dazed into your draw pile. Dazed isn't that bad of a curse. The fact that it gets, or sorry, a status. The fact that it gets put into your draw pile is a little icky. I'd much prefer the discard pile, but it's a fine Act 1 take for damage. But once again, it is just not really worth. I mean, if you have Feel No Pain, you can, but it's really not worth the extra card or not seeing that card, putting a status. The damage isn't. If you have a Feel No Pain, it's kind of manageable because you exhaust the. It's still not. Even with a Feel No Pain, this isn't really that worth it. Would not recommend. But it's not that bad. It's just not that good, and there's not many reasons to take it. But it won't like hurt you like some of these other cards, or it won't be mitigating if you don't take it. It's just fine. Rupture. Whenever you lose HP from a card, gain 1 strength. One of my favorite ways to gain strength. Unfortunately, you need to be losing HP from cards, which means bloodlettings, offerings, brutalities. If you have a brutality and rupture, that is fantastic. Brutality, bloodlettings, offerings. You can do some fantastic things with rupture. And it will go right here. Because if you're not losing HP from cards, it does nothing. And that's why it's situational. Situationally, good when you take it most of the time, but can't always take it. Searing Blow. 2 energy, deal 12 damage, can be upgraded any number of times. I love it. It's bad. Important to note that it incrementally upgrades. So if you upgrade it the first time, I'm not sure how much it upgrades for the first time. But let's just say, as an example, I don't know if these numbers are right, but they're probably not. If you upgrade it for 6 the first time, the next time it'll do 7 more, then it'll upgrade for 8 more, then 9 more. So it incrementally goes up, which is better. But unfortunately, it's just not on a value, and there's better cards to upgrade at campfires than just upgrading this. I mean, it's funny to do on endless runs just to get a really good Searing Blow, but unfortunately, not good. Not good. Second Wind. Second Wind is very good value. Exhaust all non-attack cards in your hand. Gain 5 block for each card exhausted. Second Wind is it's energy efficient blocking, similar to Power Through. It works very well with exhaust energies. Works well with Dark Embrace specifically, I feel. Energy efficient blocking that allows you to play your attack cards, the rest of the attack cards in your hand. Similar logic to Power Through, where the exhausted cards might not matter. It might not matter that you exhausted all your defensive cards because you might kill the enemy before with the other attack cards that playing this allowed you to play. Before the fact that you don't have any of those comes up. Before you reshuffle your draw pile. So, yeah, second one's solid. Seeing Red. 1, gain 1 energy, exhaust. It's middling, unupgraded. Upgraded, costs 0. It's solid, but I think Bloodletting is better right off the gate. And so, but hey, Bloodletting's pretty good. So, you can afford to have a slightly shittier version of Bloodletting. It's being slightly shittier does earn a spot in high B tier, but yeah. Seeing Red, just solid energy. Sentinel, gain 5 block. If this card is exhausted, gain 2 energy. It's alright. If you're exhausting a ton of cards, I'd say you can take this. If you're not exhausting frequently, it's not really worth it. Because you will not... I'd say it barely deserves B tier, because you could... Otherwise, it's just a defend, and you really don't want to be adding just a defend to your deck. So if you're exhausting a lot of cards, great. It's a good exhaust target. Otherwise, meh. Sever Soul. Exhaust all non-attack cards in your hand. Deal 16 damage. Um, it's just not. Something like Second Wind would serve you much better. Something like Fiend Fire would serve you much better than a card that wants to exhaust all your cards in your hand. For 2 energy, it really just doesn't do as much damage as on this card. The exhaust everything is actually more of a downside than the upside because it doesn't really do anything for each card exhausted, unlike something like Second Wind or Feed Fire. And the 16 damage doesn't, yeah. It's not multiplicative with many cards. And it costs 2 energy, unlike Second Wind. And Fiend Fire can cost 2 energy because it's busted. And so, yeah, for that, Sever Soul is low C, bottom of C. Shockwave. Shockwave's great value. Apply 3 weak and 3 vulnerable to all enemies. Upgraded is 5. They're basically weak and vulnerable for the entire fight. Hell yes. Also, I'm going to move Immolate up, actually. Immolate's better than this. Immolate's better than Armaments. I'm actually going to reorder my A tier a little bit here. Fiend Fire's better. Fiend Fire's better than Immolate. Yeah. Feed is better than Armaments. This is fine. I should reorder that. But yeah, Shockwave, crazy, crazy value. Even if it's 2 energy, making them weak and vulnerable for basically what is the entire fight. Fantastic. Shrug it off. I would define it as the most average take in the middle, in like the entire Ironclad. You see another Shrug it off and you go, yeah, I'll take it. I guess. Not happy about it, not crazy about it, but yeah, I'll take it. Gain 8 block, draw a card is just. It just does that. I mean, hey, if you have corruption, there's never such thing as too many Shrug it offs. But yeah. Shrug it off is actually, I'm just gonna look at this. It's better than you, better than you. Better than you. Better than you. Better than you. Better. Better than you. Can sit there. Comfortably there. Spot weakness. If the enemy intends to attack, gain 3 strength. Spot weakness feels like a lot of strength. It's a little more than Inflame, but it also has the situational aspect of it where the enemy might not be attacking. So they're very similar cards. I wouldn't even say one's better than the other, but Spot Weakness is more strength, but sometimes you just can't play it because the enemy is not attacking. Uh-oh. Sword Boomerang. If you have strength, it's good. It's very similar to Pummel, and I'm going to put it right next to Pummel. If you have strength, Pummel and Sword Boomerang are both very good. If you don't have strength, they're both incredibly mid. Sword Boomerang sucks in multi-target fights, but it's actually quite good single-target damage, especially with strength. Thunderclap. Thunderclap is an okay damaging card. It's another great way early to apply Vulnerable. It's a better way to apply Vulnerable than Bash early. If you take another 2-cost card, the way I see it is, if I have a 2-cost card, like if I have an Uppercut, and I really want to capitalize on the Uppercut damage. Uppercut does apply Vulnerable, but I want to capitalize on the Uppercut damage or some other 2-cost attack, right? And I have Bash, but I can't play Bash in my other 2-cost attack in the same turn. I want to be able to play Thunderclap and then the other 2-cost attack. That's why I pick up Thunderclap. True Grit. True Grit's a very solid card. Gain 7 block, exhaust a random card in your hand. Upgrade a gain 9 block, exhaust a card of your choice. True Grit is, yeah, choosing what card you want to exhaust is much better. You basically need to upgrade this card because exhausting a random card is and can be quite detrimental. But exhausting a chosen card, now that's crazy. That is crazy. Now I am looking at this S tier, and I'm noticing it's kind of lonely. It's because the Ironclad's bad, but it's yeah, the Ironclad is a little. I think the Ironclad's a little weaker, so I'm gonna move Brutality up just because that's just feeling a little lonely, and I think Brutality was already on the edge. It kind of deserves it. So yeah, Brutality can go up there. Twin Strike, deal 5 damage twice. Mid as hell. It's multi attack. It scales with strength, but it's just whatever. It's fine. Early Act 1 take for damage. Uppercut. Fantastic upgrade. Deal 13 damage, apply 1 weak, apply 1 vulnerable. If you upgrade it, it's apply 2 weak and 2 vulnerable, which is crazy. Really wants that upgrade, though. War Cry. Draw 1 card, put a card from your hand on the top of your draw pile. Very good if you upgrade it, because then it says draw 2 cards. But think about this. If you didn't pick up War Cry, the card that War Cry draws is just going to be the card that you would have drawn if you didn't have War Cry. So it can still be useful if you want to put a card on top of your deck for next turn, choose what to save. But if you have enough energy to play all the cards in your hand, then putting that card on top is a downside and War Cry is a downside. Now, if you upgrade it and it draws 2 cards, that's fantastic. War Cry is thus very good if upgraded. Unupgraded, if you are if you have more card draw than energy, it's good. Otherwise, not. Whirlwind, deal 5 damage to all enemies X times. Upgrade, deal 8. That's actually solid damage. Solid AoE damage. I love taking this in Act 1. Early Act 2. Great. Carries you through Act. There's so many fights where AoE is so important. This is the best AoE card on the Ironclad, in my opinion. Almost better than, Immolate's probably better, but Immolate's better, but Whirlwind is uncommon, and Immolate's a rare, so you'll see Whirlwind much more often. And it really wants the upgrade, though. Gotta say, that upgrade is really important. If you can gain any strength, Whirlwind also becomes crazy. It's already crazy, but yeah, the damage this thing does cannot be understated. Wild Strike. Deal 12 damage, shuffle a wound into your draw pile. Really unfortunate place for the wound to go. You really don't want that wound in your draw pile. It'd be much better if it was in your discard. Unfortunately, it is not. It does not go into your discard. And so Wild Strike is really, really hurting. It's really not enough damage to justify that wound. And unless you have something like an Evolve or a Fire Breathing, it's just not. Yeah, like it doesn't justify it. I'll try to go down there. All right, that's the Ironclad tier list. Hope you've enjoyed. And now I'm just gonna edit the tier list for some clickbait. But instead, maybe instead of putting stuff at the top. Nah, I don't have an F tier. Here. Let's mess around. We'll put. What can we do? I'll put Flex up in S tier. Yeah, we gotta make this somewhat believable, but all right. Brutality can stick around because it is cool art. We'll just like start randomly moving some stuff around, but this goes here. Just randomly moving stuff around to make the tier list look a little more bullshit. All right, Demon Form. We gotta drag that up in S tier for the meme. Feel No Pain can still be an S tier because I respect it so much. Corruption can be like low B for the bait. We gotta keep A tier 1 column. Dark Embrace can go. Impervious. We'll put Bloodletting. What's something else I can bait people with? Feed can go at top of S tier. What's another funny card? I can put Clash. Oh, Clash can go. Brutality can get up here, get some attention. And Fiendfire can go up here, kind of. Double Tap can come up here, but then we're going to take Evolve down. Blood for Blood can come up here. Alright. That looks like good bait. Alright. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that was helpful. Goodbye.